This is the Our Auto Expert Podcast. Find us on air, online, on mobile, and on your smart speaker. Please subscribe at ourautoexpert.com. Our Auto Expert. Our Auto Expert. Our Auto Expert. Our Auto Expert. Now, here's the host of Our Auto Expert. Our Auto Expert. Nik Miles.
Well, Happy New Year. Locally created, nationally celebrated from the Northwest and the Southeast. This is America's Car Radio Show. If it has a throttle, we'll feature it on air, online, on mobile, or on smart speaker. This is Our Auto Expert. I'm Nik Miles, along with Truck Girl Jen. And sitting in the studio in this brand new year is John Vincent from U.S. News and World Report. A whole new year, which means we can look back at 2019 and see the cars that were our favorites. We're going to get a chance to do that. Jen, what was your favorite car of last year?
The Rolls-Royce Wraith.
Oh, that seems very strange for Truck Girl Jen to be liking a Rolls-Royce. Does it come in a truck version?
Ooh, that would be cool.
A big old
10 cars now, since she picked one that costs as much as 10 cars?
Yeah, see?
At least.
You could have probably 10 Silverados for that price.
Oh, at least. At least. Well, that was one of my favorites.
You got to drive that on the Run to the Sun event this year.
The Nissan GTR.
Oh, yes, you do like that. I had some fun with that in San Diego this week.
Did you?
Yeah, that's an excellent piece of machinery.
Okay, the new Vet, which I haven't driven yet.
No, I don't think many people have driven the new Vet. I did see it on display at the San Diego Auto Show, and
I saw that cute little picture on Facebook.
It was a weird color. Looked like, I don't know. I was going to say something that's probably not official. You know, you're not allowed to say it because the FCC would ban it on the radio, but it was a little troubling.
What was yours? What was your favorite?
This is a tough year because I think some of the vehicles that stood out were pretty pedestrian-esque, like the Telluride, the Palisade, Kia Telluride, Hyundai Palisade. They were pretty outstanding vehicles. Dodge hitting it out of the park again with a new wide-body Hellcat.
True. Yeah, I forgot about
or
that
wide-body Charger. The Jeep, the new Gladiator, the Wrangler with the mild hybrid, that's pretty incredible, and the Sky Touch roof. There's just so much. There's so much.
Okay, but if you could have one, which one would you pick? Out
of all
everything
these
you've
cars,
driven.
probably the Supra, Toyota Supra.
Really?
I was told I couldn't have one at home. I got my hand smacked and told you can't. We have too many cars.
How about you, John?
That is a great choice. The Supra would be on the top of my list. The Gladiator would be right up there.
Right. See? They're all great vehicles. If you had to own one, Jen, so thinking about the pittance you get paid from the radio station, what would you own?
Well, I'd have to walk. Anyways.
What would you do on your salary? What would you buy?
You know, it's tough. Like I said, I'm in a spot in my life where I don't have anybody else I need in the car, so a two-seater would be perfect.
Okay.
Besides my truck.
Would it be a Supra then?
No.
It'd be a Corvette, wouldn't it?
No.
No?
No, not a Supra.
Would it be a Corvette?
Might be.
C8?
Oh, yeah, the new one.
$60,000.
Mid-engine. Oh, I know. Yeah, I'd have to get a couple jobs for that.
Yeah, but the trouble is, too, the one you're going to want is going to be way above $60,000.
Oh, of course. Have you ever gone online and then you get to pick what you want?
Build it?
Yeah.
And it's always like double the price you thought it was going to be?
Oh, triple.
Yeah.
There are fantastic incentives right now on the current Vet.
Yeah, there is. I'll think about that.
John? I've not been a fan of the Vet until this new one. And I'm not sure I'm a fan yet.
Well,
so.
I'm having a hard time being a fan of the new one. I like the current one a whole lot. The new one doesn't seem like a Vet to me.
No, it's definitely an evolution, not a
is.
revolution. No, it's basically a revolution, not an evolution. Sorry, the other way around. It's a revolution, not an evolution. So it went from a sports car to a supercar. Definitely in the construction. It looks much more like a Lamborghini. The hood disappeared. That long hood the Vet was known for since 1953 is gone. It's become a short, stocky hood, just like a Lamborghini. It does have a lot of features that you'd expect to see in a lot of features you'd expect to see in a Ferrari, Lamborghini, even a McLaren. The air tunnels around the side of the doors,
but at a much, much better price.
Well, here's the deal. Yes, definitely a better price, maybe half what you would pay for one of those supercars. But again, not driven a high-performance one. So I don't know.
I think the sides really look like an NSX.
I think it has features of all of those vehicles.
Yeah, it does. And I think that's cool because it's like a blend.
And a designer from an Italian sports car brand would actually tell you that these aren't specific to any one brand. They're specific to Italian sports cars, just as a whole. So Bugattis and those type of things, they always have that. It has a lot of those feelings. So that's interesting. All right, John, you tell us your personal-ish choices, or U.S. News and World Report's personal-ish choices.
No,
Well, if I tell you U.S. News' personal choice, it would be the Honda CR-V.
All right. I mean, that's just about as sensible as you can get.
Exactly.
That's not drinking on New Year's Eve.
okay, how about your personal of everything that you've driven this year? Can you tell us that?
Supra and Gladiator.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, you're going to stick with those two.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
The Supra is interesting. So I had the Supra on loan at the same time as the GTR. And I really want a Supra. I like it. I mean, GTR I've driven for years. What has it been out? 6-8 years, something like that.
Forever.
Yeah. I mean, the current sort of model. I mean, you can go back 50 years if you go to previous versions of sports cars from Nissan. But I look at it now, and it's a great vehicle. But it starts. I think the cheapest one you can get is like $112,000. So it's definitely out of my price range. But the Supra really isn't, because they're all about $50,000. It absolutely isn't out of my price range. The thing is, I had them both on loan at the same time, and we had them parked here at the radio station. Like Jen drove the GTR here, and I drove the Supra. And people were driving in the parking lot taking pictures of the GTR and not the Supra. And I was wounded by that. Wounded.
Well, that's how I was when I had the Gladiator. People, chased me down to see that vehicle.
Right.
Well, it's so unique. It has that unique look that you don't see every day.
The ride and drive in that, which was in Sacramento area, we went out of Sacramento into some of the desert and off-road areas there. We got trailed by 2 or 3 guys in Jeeps who were in Wranglers, that decked out Wranglers, and they were following us, taking pictures. And there was like 10 or 12 of them on the road at the same time. They're going nuts. It was like Christmas happened way early for them. The truck is getting loads and loads of people taking pictures of it. So anyway, all right, well, that's what we think has been good last year. That's going to be the theme of our show. As we continue our Auto Expert today, we're going to take a look at the top 3 picks of luxury sedans. Perry Stern going to join us for that. We're going to look at what's changing for 2020 as far as registration fees and costs to register your electric vehicle is concerned. John's going to tell us his top 5 picks for SUVs. We're going to look at Brian Armstead telling us the EVs. What did we forget to get on our Christmas list? And Roman Micah from the Fast Lane Truck talking about the best trucks. Plus, Anton Woolman joining us as we continue our brand new year with our Auto Expert.
You're listening to Our Auto Expert.
Catch up with previous episodes of the show at our website, ourautoexpert.com. You can hear all the past shows, see automotive videos, and read insider car stories about your next ride. You'll find them all at ourautoexpert.com. One of the people you can read at that website is Perry Stern, and Perry's joining us on the phone to talk about the top 3 picks for his luxury sedans of the year. Perry, did you drive a lot of luxury sedans in 2019?
I drove a reasonable number of them, but
not enough,
these
right?
3 definitely stood out. No, you never drive enough luxury cars.
All right, so let's talk about them, starting with your number 3 on the list.
So my number 3 was the Mercedes-AMG GT63S, which is a long name for a what they call a 4-door coupe. But it is proper AMG. For those who don't know, AMG is the performance arm from Mercedes. And this car is as luxurious inside as it is ridiculously fast.
Here's the deal with this vehicle is that Mercedes. I had an argument with Mercedes-Benz about this year, and one of the things that they said was there's no such thing as a 4-door not sedan. They have 4-door coupes. And I believe a 4-door coupe is something that doesn't exist, because we've always seen coupes as 2 doors, but now they're calling the roofline a coupe, and they're choosing to call their 4 doors a coupe. So what's your belief on
that? I still think of it as a sedan. A 4-door is a sedan, but as we go through some of my other picks, I break my rules as well. And they're even calling SUVs coupes now, too. So, I mean, I think the name has kind of lost its meaning. But the nice one with this is because it's a four-door, you get that look of the coupe and you get the ridiculous performance, but you also have an incredible luxurious interior. You've got seat massagers, the best leather interior. It's a proper top-of-the-line Mercedes with an amazing powertrain.
It has an option of these strange solid wheels, doesn't it?
Yes, their wheels, they're very similar to what we've seen on the Maybach. And it's very interesting when you're driving it. There are some people that absolutely love them and some people that absolutely hate them. I'm not one who loves them. I could get along with them if I had to because the rest of the car is so brilliant.
We should be clear and say that it doesn't actually mean the wheels are solid. What it means is the hubcats have very little openings in them, so they look solid, or the wheel coverings, I don't know if they're really hubcaps anymore, the wheel coverings are solid.
No, they're actually, the alloy wheels themselves do look solid, I mean, from a glance, but they do have some vents in them, but it's not your typical multi-spoke wheels.
I will tell you, there's two things that
definitely stand out.
There's two things that are interesting about those wheels. First of all, I think they look better in black than they do in silver. But the other thing that's kind of interesting about them is somebody at Mercedes who's extremely high up and extremely senior hates them. And they will talk about it saying, oh, they're so horrible. They're awful on the original Maybach and they're awful on this. I actually think it does make the car look pretty good. It makes it look unique.
It definitely stands out.
What else about the car is great? Of course, it probably has that AMG performance, right?
It does. This one in particular has 630 horsepower, so it's very fast, all-wheel drive. Taking it for a drive, it's amazing. At any speeds you're going, you put your foot down and you get shoved back in the seats.
That's sort of into
Dodge. So it is a lot of fun to drive.
That's into Dodge territory there with that sort of the horsepower. And I like that too because people at the lights obviously want to race you when they see you have a nice car like that, and they don't know you can overtake them. So that makes me feel good anyway.
Exactly. It's kind of a sleeper car, although it's not really much.
We would ever do that on public roads.
No, of course we wouldn't do that, John, on public roads. We would only do that on private.
We wouldn't even think of doing that.
On a private freeway with private lights. All right, what was number 2 on the list for you, Perry?
So number 2 is a car that just recently came out. It's the all-new or updated Genesis G90. And so Genesis is the luxury brand from Hyundai. And they've just recently, in fact, it was just at the LA Auto Show a couple months ago that they introduced this brand new updated G90, which is their flagship sedan. And I had a chance to drive it, and it's pretty amazing. So much room in the back seats. You can really stretch out. It's almost a car that should be chauffeur driven. You've got video screens in the back seats. Seats recline in the back. And it has a grille that some people don't like. I can definitely say it looks better in person than it does in the pictures.
So I noticed that same grille is on the pictures that they released this week of their new SUV, which is coming this month.
Exactly. So this is going to be and they had said that this is going to be the new look for Genesis. I wouldn't be surprised to see updated G70s and G80s coming with that same look. But like I said, at first, it's a little startling. When we first saw it in L.A., it was not pleasant. But seeing it in person, it really does seem to work well with the car. It does help it stand out.
I was at the San Diego Auto Show this week, and I saw it in person again. I had seen it in LA. I think it does help that they have some really beautiful new color palettes as well for the vehicle, some really dark maroon metallics and things like that. Really make it stand out. But it does almost look like Rolls-Royce-ish. One of the things I think is super interesting about this vehicle is that, of course, they're part of the Hyundai family, and Hyundai built all their money from making steel. And originally, grills of Hyundais and Genesis used to reflect the smelter that the steel was melted in, so they are the same shape as a smelter. They've obviously gone away from the smelter shape with this grill, so it's kind of they're breaking out of the mold of Hyundai, just another reason to get further away from their beginnings, from their roots.
So we keep talking about the grill. What we're not saying is the grill is massive.
Yes, it is big. How big? How big is that grill compared to, let's say, a BMW X7?
It's bigger than a BMW X7.
It's different.
I love the back end of the G90, though. The back end is the classiest in the luxury class right now.
It is really nice with the LED lights that stretch across, and I really like that they've now spelled out Genesis in big letters, really trying to market the brand, which before they had a little logo that if you didn't know what it was, you didn't know it was a Genesis.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of what the rear looks like of the vehicle. I've had to pull pictures up online. Yeah, it is actually very handsome. Very handsome vehicle all the way around. All right, let's get to the last thing on your list, Perry. What's the number one? What is the best luxury sedan for 2020 or 2019?
So it's really hard to talk luxury without talking Rolls-Royce. And yes, this is beyond the means of just about everybody, but it's still the nicest, luxurious car that I drove. And yes, it's a two-door. And so to counteract the four-door coupe, I'm going with a two-door sedan.
Perfect.
So
it all balances out.
The Rolls-Royce Wraith, of course, is their sporty GT version of the vehicle. It's a beautiful thing. It has satellite-guided navigation, satellite-guided transmission. It has all of the Rolls-Royce accoutrements hand-built in about 400 hours. It's a beautiful piece of machinery. Before we run out of time, let's talk about the prices of all these vehicles from the number 3 to number 1 on the list, just to see where your head is as far as luxury is concerned. What are sort of prices of the Mercedes AMG GT 4-door? Where are we talking money-wise?
So if we're at the top of the line, the AMG GT 63S, which if you're going to buy it, that's the one to get, $161,200.
Ah, chump change.
So, which shows you what a bargain the Genesis is, because even though they haven't announced official pricing, the top of the line Genesis G90 starts around $75,000.
All right.
Which for what you get in that car is pretty phenomenal. But then you go to the Rolls-Royce, and the Rolls-Royce Wraith Black Badge that I had a chance to drive, I believe that starts at about $470,000 or so.
Ah, so 5 Genesis G90s.
Yeah, something like that.
All right, well, let me ask you this.
This is the price is no object. I want one of those.
Right, let me ask you this. If price was an object, which one would you buy?
I think, if price was an object, probably the Genesis. I think it's probably the best value for the money.
Knew it.
For a luxury sedan.
I knew it. Perry Stern, thank you for joining us, telling us your top luxury picks for 2020 as far as sedans, or 2019 as far as the sedans are concerned. Coming up, we'll have more Our Auto Expert. You can read Perry's stuff at ourautoexpert.com, and you can follow us on all the social media channels.
You're listening to the Our Auto Expert podcast.
Locally created, nationally celebrated, all the way from the northwest to the southeast. This is Our Auto Expert. You can also check us out online at ourautoexpert.com. You can check us out on your smart speaker. You can check us out on your phone. You can download the podcast. You can see all the videos from various TV segments that we do around the country. There is a lot of information about cars. Some of the information is very complicated, and we're going to try and make it even more complicated for you, because our listeners, depending on what city you live in, may be paying more money for your electric vehicles. If it's electrified or electric, plug-in electric, hybrids, things are changing for 2020, and there are new state taxes, there are new state registration fees. Some car companies on a federal level will be losing. Tesla is ramping down its incentives for its vehicles. Is it zero now, John?
It's zeroed out now.
All right, zero as of January 1st?
I believe so.
All right, so Tesla, people losing because they've produced so many electric vehicles. So things are changing. Illinois, as of January 1st, 2020, EV owners will now have to pay the new year, the registration of $251, which, I just registered my Nissan Titan brand new truck. It was $358. So,
Did you have to pay that every year?
No, that was just registering a new vehicle.
This is every year.
Right, and to be honest with you, how much money are you going to save? Are you going to buy 75 cents on gas? They don't get any gas tax. I can see why they're putting up the registration fees in somewhat.
Well, if it's a hybrid, they're still getting gas tax.
State doesn't get as much money off the gas tax. And how much money do you save by having a hybrid? Probably a lot more.
Well, look at it this way. If you have a car that gets 48 miles per gallon, it's going to pay half the gas tax in the same distance that you've driven as a car that has 24 miles per gallon.
Right. I get it. I get it. There's still lots of arguments to be had over how much you can save and whether this is the right thing to do. I think that ultimately all these states are offering incentives, and I think sometimes these incentives are going to come out of this money as well. You have to register these vehicles where it's going to cost you more to register them, especially in Illinois. Illinois is not a really big state for electric vehicles. They're sort of on pace with the rest of the country. I know that states like Indianapolis are working really hard to try and electrify the state. They Blue Indy, where you drive through Indianapolis, you see all these new charging stations called Blue Indy. They're doing the cars, a lot of electrified stations there. So there are some states that are really into it. Texas, I don't think I know one person in Texas with an electric car, which is different. Washington State, the annual $75 fee, car tab fee for electric charging stations. That it doesn't matter if you use it or not. You're going to have to pay that. I don't know if that's necessarily fair.
No, that's additional on top of your regular registration. So it's additional $75 a year.
Yeah, the Washington fee, the way that it was presented, doesn't make a lot of sense because they're charging it on just hybrid vehicles as well, and they're saying it's for charging station infrastructure, which normal hybrid vehicles cannot use.
Right. Only plug-in hybrids. And then Oregon has probably the most complicated law because you can opt for this certain plan where you report your mileage and you pay depending on the mileage you have driven. That's an option that you can get. You can get free for vehicles that get 0 to 19 miles a gallon. The increase is $18 a year, bringing the registration costs of the passenger vehicles to $86. Then $122 for 2 years. Vehicles with a rating between 20 and 39 miles per gallon would have a 23 annual increase, bringing that fee to $132 for 2 years. Unfortunately, I'm probably going to be in the lower miles per gallon of the most of the vehicles that I drive, under 20 miles a gallon. I don't know about you, John.
Well, depending on how you drive.
What it's rated at.
The window sticker, yes.
Yeah, so it does really whack a lot of people who live rurally in Oregon who have to drive big trucks for work. Those type of things, they're definitely going to be in the lower levels. But it's not a huge amount of money. And only an increase, a fairly $18 a year increase is not a huge amount. $23 a year is not a huge amount of increase. But still an increase. And we like to moan about the more money we have to pay for our vehicles because it's our right as Americans to be able to drive vehicles.
And on the flip side of all this stuff is, yes, you see some increased registration fees for EVs, plug-in hybrids, and pure electric vehicles. But if you buy a plug-in hybrid or a pure electric vehicle, you're generally going to get some pretty hefty tax refunds that will offset those additional registration fees.
Yeah, and I think plus, your registration fee, depending on how the vehicle is registered, can often be tax deductible because if it's a business expense. So you've got to look at it that way. I would just say that we should be thankful. And they're probably losing more money in gas tax anyway because I'm not having to pay that now. Coming up, we'll talk about top 5 SUVs with John Vincent.
You're listening to Our Auto Expert.
Catch up with previous episodes of the show at our website, ourautoexpert.com. You can hear the past shows. You can see automotive videos. Just did a whole bunch of auto show presentations around the country on TV stations. And you can read insider car stories about your next ride. You'll find them all at ourautoexpert.com. So this week in the show, we are going over some of the best of 2019, looking at some of the best vehicles that we have had the chance to drive and evaluate. And John Vincent is here from U.S. News and World Report, along with Truck Girl Jen. And we are talking about the SUV category, which now, of course, is the biggest category in car purchasing. Although sedans still make up a good chunk of the segment, SUVs are where the money is.
Absolutely. They make a lot of money off SUVs, and Americans love their SUVs.
There is two big divisions about SUVs. There is the SUV, which is a true SUV, which is probably based on a truck platform or has remnants of a truck platform. And that's what we would call the original sport utility vehicle. And then there is the modern crossover, which is really started its life as a sedan, now has been raised and has had the chassis beefed up some to do slightly different things. And as the trend in car liking changes, so does the engineering. But understanding it still takes some companies 8 years to work through a car and work out exactly how it's going to look, how it's going to be. Newer cars like Ford are trying to get that down to 2 years. They're at about 4 years right now. So if I go into a design center at Ford and say, at an engineering center and say, design me a new mid-size SUV, they start today, they could have it on the streets in 4 years' time, which is pretty incredible.
Or they could just change the badges and have it to you in a year.
Which sometimes, and I'm no finger pointing at Ford, but sometimes people have done, and maybe still do. So you've been looking at the top 5 picks for SUV this year, and being the fact that you're from US News and World Report, it's pretty predictable what's at least in your 1 to 3.
Well, we look at very practical buying reasons when we make our rankings and reviews. And
so what goes into it? Give us a sort of a flavor of what you would look at.
So our reviews are based off the consensus opinion of America's top automotive journalists.
Okay.
Plus quantitative data on predicted reliability, safety, and a number of other factors.
All right.
So we come up with rankings for every vehicle, every major vehicle in the marketplace.
And if you go to US News and World Report, you can see those rankings, presumably.
Yes, you can see those rankings for new cars and used cars going back almost 10 years.
All right, so let's talk about, you have the top 5 here that you've picked out that were around last year. The 2020 Honda CR-V is in your number 5 spot. That is the most predictable one I could imagine.
It's just a rock-solid vehicle
right.
that does everything that most consumers want a crossover to do.
And finally coming out with a hybrid this year as well.
Finally coming out with a hybrid, which will certainly be well accepted in the marketplace.
Yeah, I saw it at the San Diego Auto Show over the new year, and it looks great. I mean, there's not a massive change, some technology updates, a few tweaks here and there, but it's exactly what you'd expect from Honda, plodding along in a solid direction on a solid line with solid results.
Exactly. It's definitely vanilla, but a lot of people like vanilla.
Now, talking about that segment, that mid-size crossover, I guess it's a compact crossover. Talking about that segment of compact crossover, the RAV4 is in that segment. Which is the number one seller? Because I think it used to be the CR-V, but I think the RAV4 outpaced it.
I believe the RAV4 has outpaced it.
So that's sort of America's favorite, but it is the newer vehicle too.
It's interesting. In Toyota's lineup, when we think of hybrid, we always think of Prius. The Prius is no longer the top seller of their hybrid lineup. It's now the RAV4 hybrid.
Depending on how you look at hybrids, too, technically the Ram 1500 is the number one hybrid in the country. If you're looking at e-Torque,
if you're looking at the e-Torque, that's right.
Mild hybrid, they sell about I think about 200,000 of those last year. Or so of the V6 engine, which has the mild hybrid in the transmission, and I think Prius are selling about 50,000, which is quite a jump. So the CR-V sitting at number 5 in your spot because it's solid, because it's reliable. But they have a pretty good safety rating as well. They have the ACE body structure, they have the Honda sensing. Most of these modern cars have outstanding safety,
and most models come with their whole suite of active safety features.
All right, so interestingly enough, on to number 4 of your list is a hybrid. It's the Toyota RAV4 hybrid.
It is. The RAV4 was redesigned last year, and the new model is much more interesting, much more fun to drive than the old model. And the best one in that lineup is the hybrid.
I think one of the things that makes me excited about the RAV4 now, I think they're selling about 450,000 of these every year, is the fact that Toyota, which were a very vanilla company, I mean, maybe 15 years ago I would have called them pretty soulless cars, even though they were absolutely undefeated in reliability and resale value. But they have kind of developed, there's a little bit of character coming out of these cars now. Orange dashes, 2 or 3 tones on the inside, some vibrant colors on the outside, cladding, the sort of things you wouldn't expect from a Toyota.
Yep, and every RAV4 now comes with features like adaptive cruise control, automatic emergency braking, lane keeping assist, the full suite of active safety features.
Toyota are a little slow on the start to get a lot of this technology in their vehicles. The Safety Sense 2.0, those type of things, which does things like sees pedestrians in low light and has bicycle detection and full stop and all those type of things. That was a little later than a lot of the competition, yet, again, 5-star body rating, all of these things that they have is constant with the Toyota, with Honda.
And now Toyota leads the industry on number of cars with those that come standard on all models.
Which I like. And I know that Nissan are trying to do that too, make sure that they have front collision, full collision braking and all that sort of thing as standard on every one of their cars.
The domestic automakers really lag in that area.
All right, let's talk about number 3 on your list.
Number 3 on my list is one that I can see in my driveway maybe in the next year or so. It's the 2019 Acura RDX.
So this is, made by Acura, which is Honda's premier company. They're I wouldn't call them a luxury company, but they're a premier order version of a Honda.
They would call themselves a luxury company.
I know they'd like to. And the RDX is pretty much the same size as the Honda CR-V, but it has a lot more intuitive features.
And a very, very much stronger engine.
I do still find it very hard with 2 things in this vehicle. One is they took the NSX drive mode button and stuck this massive big fist-sized button. It's not maybe quite that big, but I like to exaggerate a little bit. Fist-sized button in the middle of the dash, which just seems just unnecessary.
There is that, yeah.
And the other thing is you either love or you hate the touchpad. And it's a slightly different touchpad in the center console, whereas where you touch it on the pad is where your finger appears on the screen, whereas like the Lexus touchpad, you're used to putting your finger down on the pad and then sliding your finger around to get somewhere. It doesn't quite work the same on the Honda or the Acura version.
Yeah, it's a very interesting system that I think owners would learn to be able to use very efficiently and safely. It's better than a lot of them out there, but not as good as the best.
I think a lot of things that frustrate us about vehicles, I get frustrated with the transmission in these vehicles because it's a push-button transmission, which I'm fine within Lincoln and I'm fine within GMC because I can see the buttons up on the dash. But when you put them down low, and then Honda and Acura have this idea of every button is different, so you should be able to feel your way around and know which button you're pressing. And I feel like it's the salesman at the market that says, I have this wonderful bathroom set where every piece is different. It feels a little bit like hodgepodge.
I own a Honda vehicle with the push-button shifter system, and you get used to it, and it's second nature at this point.
Yeah, I think it's just because we're in them for a week. All right, that's your number 3. Number 2 on the list
is not a 2019 vehicle. It's just came out as the 2020 Hyundai Palisade.
I think this is a good choice. I think this vehicle is an outstanding piece of machinery. I think it's going to also turn the industry upside down, and I'm glad that your number 1 and your number 2 is in this position because it's the way I feel about them as well. I think this is more of the sort of Lexus style vehicle. It's very roundy. It's huge 3-row. It's a full size or a full size SUV. We consider it a 3-row midsize, and it replaces the 3-row Santa Fe. But it seems much bigger and much more bulky than the three-row Santa Fe. I think they did a really good job with this, the technology, and especially some of the thought that goes into this vehicle. For instance, when you tow with it, it has a self-leveling mechanism at the back, so you don't wear the rear tires out. So when you hitch something onto the hitch at the back, it actually thinks about things to keep the vehicle level. So your headlights are pushed down, they're not pointing in the air because you have a heavy load behind you as well. So there was a lot of thought that went into this vehicle and the usability for anybody that might own it.
And it's a vehicle that's loaded with technology, but also comes with that great Hyundai 5-year, 60,000-mile basic warranty and 10-year powertrain warranty.
The one thing about this is the price, too.
They are getting expensive.
They're less expensive than they were. Than a lot of the competition is, though, right?
They are less expensive than the competition, but that does not make them inexpensive.
Right. So we're talking a starting price around $30,000, but probably wouldn't own one less than 45.
Well, less than 40.
Yeah. All right. Less than 40. Depends on how your taste is, what you have to have, what boxes you have to have checked. And then its sister vehicle is in your number one position.
It is, and I like it just a little more. It's the 2020 Kia Telluride.
I do. I agree with you. I think it's a better vehicle. I think it's better styled. It's very similar, of course, in every way because it's really the same vehicle under their skin with some tuning modifications and some technology modifications and slightly different skin over it. But the front end is more Land Rover-esque, I think, in the Telluride.
And the whole vehicle just kind of has a slightly tighter feel to it.
I like the grab handles in the center console. It feels a little bit more like I would be happy to get mud in the Telluride than I would in the Palisade. The only thing I would tell you about the Telluride that I don't like, I think the Palisade does a better job, is the rear lights. In the Telluride, they are very weird. Very weird rear lights. They're this sort of just strange. They don't look like they're in the right place. I'm sure that'll get modified in when they do an update, mid-cycle refresh.
Yeah, for me, it's kind of, looking at older car companies, the Hyundai is the Buick to the Telluride's Pontiac.
Okay, I could go with that. Out of all of these 5 vehicles you've talked about, which one would you own?
Telluride.
See, exactly the same as me. I think next week we're announcing our vehicle of the year, and I think the Telluride's in the running for it. So we'll have more about that on next week's show. But we've evaluated these over the whole year, and some of these vehicles, and it's a strong contender.
There was only one thing that I didn't like about it,
which is
the Telluride, is the side mirrors. For someone who's my height, you can't.
How tall are you, Jen?
Well, not this again. Anyways, you have a hard time.
No, come on.
With
people in radio can't see you.
With the pillar and the way the mirror is.
Jen, how tall are you?
4'11" and 3/4 of an inch.
Now we have a better vision.
Anyways, that's my only downfall.
2020 is going to be a great year for SUVs. We got a lot of great stuff coming out.
Yeah, there is.
Exciting.
We can talk about that in a future show as well. I don't know, do they make a front booster seat for that?
Okay, let's not go there.
Coming up, we're going to have a lot more stuff on our auto expert. Stand by for new truck picks for 2020.
You're listening to the Our Auto Expert podcast.
Locally created, nationally celebrated from the Northwest to the Southeast. This is America's Car Radio Show. If it has a throttle, we'll feature it online on air, on mobile, on smart speaker. This is Our Auto Expert. I'm your host, Nik Miles, along with Truck Girl Jen. In the studio with us all of today's show is John Vincent from U.S. News and World Report. We're talking about what 2019 had to offer. Were they 2020 vehicles? Were they 2019 vehicles? It sort of depends on when the new vehicles came out. Joining us on the phone is Brian Armstead. He, of course, is an automotive writer. You can read his stuff at the Detroit News and many other outlets across the country. We asked Brian to pick out his 3 EVs that I think he thought were the best EVs of last year. So, Brian, did you drive a lot of EVs in 2019, or sort of the same amount as other years?
Well, pretty much the same amount as other years, Nick, but I do have to take issue with your statement saying if it has a throttle, we're going to review it, because in this case, it has to have a real stat to review it, if you know what I mean.
Well, I guess you still would call that pedal a throttle, right?
Well, yeah, I guess so. Just
you can't call it a gas pedal because that would be wrong.
Exactly. But yeah, I had a chance to drive a lot of really cool cars this year, and I was asked to give you my top 3, so here we go. We'll start with number 3, and it's the Nissan Leaf Plus. 226 miles of range with the extended package. You have to get the extended package because the regular Leaf, 155 or so miles, and you get range anxiety pretty quickly, where you go to the mall and you feel like you're going to run out of juice. Terrific buy, $36,550 is the price with the extended range package. And we'll talk a little bit about some honorable mentions after I give you my top 3. Number 2, Kia Niro EV. 38.5 out the door, 239 miles of range. People fail to realize that even though it's as pricey as a Tesla Model 3, you get a 100,000-mile warranty with the car. And it's just a sensational little hatchback. You can put a lot of gear in it. It goes like stink. It's got the warranty. And it's kind of a sleeper. You know, you're not screaming EV like you are with Tesla. And, of course, Nick and John, my top model for this year has to be a Tesla because they sold over 140,000. I know.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. What was your favorite? What was your favorite part about the Nero?
Just the fact that I don't know. It fit well. The fit and finish was terrific. I just think that everything in it was a great melding of all the resources necessary to make an electric car a great daily experience.
Okay.
All right, and then tell us again why you picked the Tesla as number one. Come on, you better have a good argument.
It probably wasn't the fit and finish.
No, it wasn't the fit and finish, but they sold 140,000 of these last year. And, you know, for your 32,690 up to 49,690, depending on which package you choose, performance or range, you get a sizzling 3.2 0 to 60 time, 310 miles of range. And it's just, you know, it's like a cult. I mean, you see Teslas everywhere. They look good. I know they don't have the best fit and finish. That would go to cars like the Volkswagen e-Golf, which is one of my honorable mention vehicles, which has superb fit and finish, but just has 125 miles of range. Now, the e-tron is another strong contender, but it's just so expensive. It's a $50,000+ vehicle. Then you get into the niche vehicles like the Jag I-Pace, the Porsche Taycan. Now, also on my honorable mention list, Chevy Bolt, 259 miles of range, but too small in an SUV world. I don't want to be beside an Escalade in a Chevy Bolt. So it's just a lot of good stuff out there. But I think that these are the top three models that I would choose for 2018. There were 140,000 Model 3 sold, 361,000 electric cars sold in 2018, which is about 1.15% of the $17.3 million sold in model year 2018. So still a very small percentage of the population don't have the infrastructure needed. China has over 300,000 charging stations. We have less than 100,000 charging stations. So again, you know, the debate between whether electric power is clean because a lot of it's coal-fueled, you know, there's just a lot going on with the debate. I would encourage you to go out and test drive one of these vehicles, and remember that incentives vary based on your state to state, where you live, state to state, but also you have federal rebates available for an electric car purchase, so that can really help with the price of these vehicles as well, Nick and John.
Let me ask you, do you think 2020 is going to be a much broader year to choose from? Because it seems like there's a lot of electric vehicles coming out this year.
Oh, man, it's like, you know, we're about to take the cap off the bottle. You've got the Rivian pickup with its four-wheel donuts. You've got the Tesla space pickup truck that's going to come out. You know, the Taycan will be in full production with its turbo variant and its, you know, rear-wheel drive variants. The South Koreans are bound to make steps. You know, Kia and Hyundai, they're bound to make steps forward, as well as the Japanese brands. And the Europeans will always be in the fight because they refuse to be outdone, even though they're being outdone at their own game right now. So I see 2020 and beyond as a real bellwether for electric vehicle sales if the federal incentives stay in place and if state incentives stay in place and if the infrastructure can be, you know, it continues to evolve. I mean, I think they're a gas. You press your foot down and you go like stink. It's cool to get, you know, the equivalent of X number of miles per gallon over gasoline-powered engines. And, you know, it's good. It's going to be good for the economy as long as the United States develops wind power and solar power and clean sources of energy.
Do you think the Tesla Model Y will make a big dent in the industry in 2020?
Not sure. Not sure about that. I think Tesla will continue to have a stranglehold because people, they're disciples of Elon Musk. Anything he builds will be successful, I believe. You know, Model X sales are up. The Model S continues to be a strong seller. So to go back, I would say yes. Anything that Tesla builds right now, I think will have a strong foothold in the market, Nick.
I think you're probably right. At the same time, too, though, I'm going to predict right now, put a flag in the sand and say this is the last year that Tesla are probably going to dominate as much as they have. I think you're going to see much more competition. We've got the Mark E coming out. We've got all these different vehicles coming out. It's going to be a busy year.
How could I forget about the Mark E? That's already sold out of their reservation allocation.
Yeah, it's a good car. Brian, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
You're listening to Our Auto Expert.
Catch up with previous episodes of the show at our website, ourautoexpert.com. You can hear all past shows, see our automotive videos, and read insider car stories about your next ride. You'll find them all at ourautoexpert.com. We've talked about luxury vehicles for last year. We've talked about SUVs for last year. We've talked about EVs from last year, and we've talked about sedans. But there's one category that's missing, and he's going to fill that hole for us, hopefully. Roman Micah's here from the Fast Lane Truck to talk about some of the top picks for trucks for last year. Roman, there was a lot to choose from.
You know, 2019 was a great year for trucks. If you're a truck guy or gal out there, this was the year to be alive, man. Nick, we had a great year. All kinds of new trucks, all kinds of cool new trucks, all kinds of cool new work trucks, everything from the working man to the playing gal. It's all happened in 2019.
Trucks have sort of gone from this utility vehicle that was made for people who needed to haul sand and lumber and work at building sites, and they've sort of have two very strong new segments, I guess you would call them. One is for those people who like to haul things like a fifth wheel and their toys and to have adventures in, like overlanding, that type of thing. And the other one is for those people that are using trucks as their family vehicles. And those two categories are actually starting to really make quite a dent in the amount of sales of trucks too, because some people now using their vehicles as a family vehicle rather than just a utility vehicle.
You're absolutely right, Nick. And the other thing that happened, which is sad but true, is, you know, in America once upon a time we used to build really great luxury cars, and the Germans came around and, in a sales perspective at least, did us better, right? Mercedes, BMW, Audi kind of took over that luxury car segment while Cadillac and Lincoln kind of fell asleep at the wheel. And then the fuel crisis hit, and the Japanese came along and did economy cars better. But the one thing that we still do is trucks, you know. And so if you want what is now a truly American car, you go for a truck, Nick. And I think that's a lot of ways and a lot of reasons that people are buying trucks, because it's like the last of the American vehicles. And I think it's a great choice for a lot of people because we live in a very big country. You know, you can go from my house to Phoenix. I live in, just outside of Denver, and make literally two turns, right? You take a right on I-25, take a right at Albuquerque, take a left at Flagstaff, and you've gone 1,000 miles in a straight line. You can't do that in Japan. You can't do that in Germany, but you can do that in America. And that's why trucks are so popular, because they're suited for this country.
Let's talk a little bit about the influence the Japanese are having on this now, because it was sort of they've had a small Toyota pickup truck, you know, in the 50s and 60s. It did relatively well, but they've never really outpaced the Americans at what they do best. But now with the Tundra and the Titan, although the Titan's quite far behind America, their sales are creeping up. They're now going to sell, Toyota going to sell around 120,000 Tundras. The Tacoma, their mid-size pickup, their smaller pickup, is actually still the dominant vehicle in that segment. Ford getting back into that segment. So the Japanese are trying to play Americans at their own game.
Yeah, you know, Nick, you put your finger on it, right? So trucks come in three different sizes. Mid-size, which is weird because they're small, and the mid-size truck segment is dominated by the Tacoma. Then you've got the full-size truck segment, what some people call it the half-ton. And the reason they call it the half-ton, by the way, is once upon a time they could haul a half a ton, right? Now they haul a lot more. That's, of course, dominated by the Ford F-150, the Silverado, and the Ram. And then you've got the heavy-duty trucks, which are three-quarter-ton or one-ton trucks once upon a time. And those, of course, are only built by American companies, Ford, FCA, which is, I guess, American-ish, and Chevy. But yeah, Japanese have taken a long-term view. So I think their thinking is, people come into our dealerships and they start with, let's say you're a fan of Toyota, the Corolla, and then as their family gets bigger, they move up to maybe a Camry, and then eventually, if they need more haul-in or towing, they'll get a Tacoma, and then all the way up to the big Tundra. And they don't look at it as, well, let's see how many trucks we can sell this year. They look at it, how many trucks will we sell in 10 or 20 years? And that's a good strategy. It's really worked for them. The other thing that's worked for them is the Tacoma, which is, by the way, on my list of one of the top new trucks for 2020, the TRD Pro version at least. That's built, for the most part, in San Antonio. So, it's an Asian truck built right here in Texas.
There is an emerging new category as well in trucks, which I think will play a bigger part in the next year. We saw it with we saw it with Honda and their Ridgeline, which is basically a Honda Pilot SUV where they put a truck bed on the back. So it's very much like a car. It's not really built to do truckish things, although it does do a little bit more dynamic lifestyling than some of the SUVs do. But now it looks like Hyundai are going to sort of enter this market with what they're calling the Santa Cruz. It was a concept about 4 or 5 years ago. We hear it's going to be actually manufactured. So these are really sort of 3-row SUVs which are being converted into a truck bed.
Yeah, I'd call them lifestyle trucks, right? So the Ridgeline is certainly there. The upcoming Santa Cruz is certainly there. And probably even the Gladiator, right? The Jeep Wrangler that they turn into a pickup truck is certainly there. So these are trucks that people don't necessarily buy for as much for their work truck needs as they do for fun or lifestyle, right? They like taking their surfboard in the back of a pickup truck. They like to go hunting. They like to go, four-wheeling, right? And all these trucks kind of meet that lifestyle niche. Probably more millennial sort of niche. Yeah, it's cool. I love them. It's one of my favorite segments in the truck business, and they're just cool. I mean, the Gladiator, dude, is the only truck in America that can be a convertible. How cool is that?
Yeah, no, they've done a great job with that vehicle, and it's definitely eye candy for everybody that sees it at auto shows or sees it driving on the road. Let's go through your list then, Roman. Top 5 picks for trucks for last year. Where are we, and what's on that list?
All right, well, we've already mentioned 2 of them. So we talked about the Tacoma TRD Pro, which is their most off-road worthy Tacoma. Love that truck. If you're going to go overlanding, that is certainly going to be the truck that most people will choose. The other one that is on my list is the Gladiator. A Wrangler, that's a truck. How cool is that? You can not only now go, off-roading and wheeling, but you can put all your stuff in there or haul your toys behind it. The other truck that I'd love to mention, which is really cool, is a new Ford F-250 Tremor. Now we're in the heavy-duty class, and for a long time that was ruled by the Power Wagon, right? Power Wagon was the only real off-road worthy heavy-duty truck you could get, but there was one problem with it, and that is you could not get it in a diesel, right? Heavy-duty trucks are mainly diesels because they're big, they're bulky, they're brawny, and people use them to tow. And Ford came along and kind of said, take this Power Wagon, we're going to build an off-road truck, we're going to give it a slight lift, we're going to put off-road tires on it, we're going to give it locking discs, and we're going to get it to you in a diesel. So you got to love the fact that competition makes the breed stronger, and I think that Ford did that. Now, talking about
is the Tremor a trim level of the F-250?
Yes, the Tremor trim level.
Okay.
There was an FX4, now there's a Tremor.
Okay. Carry on. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure I understood it.
Yeah, no worries. It's a direct competitor to the Power Wagon. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, of course, is the brand new Ram 3500 with the big old Cummins. It's a facelifted truck, but it will haul your house, literally. It's an incredible truck. 1,000 pound-foot of torque, probably the best interior in the truck class. You've been in Ram trucks, Nick. What do you think of it?
I think the interior, they worked really hard on making this as something that, for a long time, people that owned horses and had horse boxes wanted to tow their horse boxes with something more luxurious. And now the interior of these vehicles have become more luxurious because they had a Range Rover doing it. Now they're looking at having, something like a Ram to do it, but they kind of up the interior to have sort of leather trim and piping and nice big carpets. And in the 3500 they had really nice sort of electronics and those sort of things that weren't available anywhere else, and they're sort of adding in everything so you didn't have to own a Range Rover. I want to talk about the rest of those vehicles that you have on your list and maybe get in depth to which one you might actually own for 2020. When we come back, we're going to take a quick break. If you want to listen to this show or other podcasts on the show, you can go to ourautoexpert.com. Roman Micah back with his best trucks of last year.
You're listening to the Our Auto Expert podcast.
We're talking about the best of last year as far as cars, trucks, SUVs, luxury cars, and luxury vehicles, EVs. Roman Micah from the Fast Lane Truck is on the phone. He is the premier channel for trucks, the number one YouTube channel for trucks in the United States. So he is the expert to go to when it comes to trucks. Roman, our national listeners would like to know a little more about the 2020 Nissan Titan. Did it make enough of an improvement in this vehicle to make your list of top picks?
It's funny that you asked about that because we just got it in the office on Friday. It just arrived on Friday, and I did not have a chance to drive it. So obviously the Titan lost the Cummins, which was their kind of tweener truck. Didn't sell. Nissan made a bet that people wanted a kind of a truck that didn't fit into those three segments that we talked about, basically a full-size truck with a diesel engine. And it didn't sell very well. So they went and they improved the Titan. They built them in Mississippi, which I think is phenomenal. They added more gears to the transmission. It is now the most powerful full-size truck. I think it's 405 horsepower you can buy with the right fuel. And they improved the interior, and they did something which is really great. They added their entire safety suite of safety items, blind side monitoring, backup. When you're backing up, it'll let you know if somebody's behind you. Autonomous braking.
I think good.
I haven't driven it.
I think it's the only vehicle in its class that has forward and reverse collision avoidance, and it also has a panoramic sunroof. With grab handles, because a lot of people weren't able to put panoramic sunroof with grab handles in there because the sunroof changed the structure of the roof itself, and they kept the grab handles, which I love because a lot of times where my mom, who's a little old lady, wants to get into a truck and I'm driving it, she needs the grab handle to get. Oh, my dad, for that matter, too, needs to get in with the grab handles as well. So it was nice to see that they kept those in there.
It sounded a little bit, Nick, like you were saying, asking for a friend.
Yes,
where we know that you're the one who needs the grab
Well,
handles.
no, I mean, there's no. Sometimes I have to lift Jen into the truck too. So
no, not me. I have lifted trucks, but yeah, everybody else.
Let's talk a little bit about Chevrolet, and they had a pretty down year for them. They came out with a new Silverado a couple of years ago. It really didn't meet the mark as far as many buyers were concerned in looks. The interior definitely didn't meet the mark, and they sort of whipped out an interior refresh that they promised in the future.
Yeah. They've been design challenged, as we like to say in the office. They've had some misses, but the one hit they did do, which is incredible, and I really, let me put it this way. When I was a kid, dude, my dad had an LTD, Ford LTD, and it got about 12 miles to the gallon. Today, you can go out and buy a full-size pickup truck that gets almost 30 mpg on the highway, which is phenomenal. And GM did pull a rabbit out of the hat with the new 3-liter diesel. The ground-up, straight 6, 3-liter, completely new design. You've probably driven it in either the GMC or the Silverado. Phenomenal engine, great fuel economy. Didn't quite beat Ram on highway MPG, but came so close. I think like 1 MPG. And I think that is kind of the sleeper engine, sleeper truck, because you're going to see that power plant in the upcoming Yukon, I believe, in a lot of GM products, and it's a really strong contender. So if you were to ask me, like, what's the sleeper truck of the year, it's got to be that 3-liter. What are we going to call it? There's the Baby Duramax, which is a small, mid-size truck engine, and there's a full-size so the Mid-Max. Does that work?
I guess. They also do a lot with cameras in those vehicles as well, though. They probably have the best,
my God, you're
best
so right.
camera system.
Yeah, I mean, there are more cameras in that truck than probably Khloe Kardashian has in her house, right? It's incredible.
They
have this technology where you can actually see through the behind of your trailer, right? So you put a camera on the back of the trailer, and then basically when you look at it in that big infotainment display, it makes the trailer disappear, so you can see, the guy that's tailgating you that you normally would not be able to see because you've got this big trailer behind you. Really cool stuff.
Yeah, they did a good job, I think, with that. All right, Roman, in the few minutes that we have left, tell me, if you had to take your own money and buy a truck for this year, which one would you buy?
Well, we just bought two of them, Nick, so that's a great question. We went and bought a Gladiator because how can you not? It's such a cool truck. It's expensive, but in our world, it's certainly one of the most interesting midsize trucks. It's brand new. It's going to be really fun to actually take it off-road and customize it. And the other truck we just bought, which is another great new engine, I think kind of the swan song of the big block pushrod V8. We bought the Ford F-250 with the new 7.3-liter. The Ford engineers are calling it Godzilla. Nathan calls it King Kong. I think Godzilla is a GTR. So I like King Kong. We're going to go with King Kong.
I'd go with that. Roman Micah from the Fast Lane Truck on YouTube, the #1 YouTube channel for trucks. Go check him out. He's a great guy. They do great reviews. Coming up, we'll talk about CES and the cool things.
You're listening to Our Auto Expert.
Welcome back to the show. Catch up with previous episodes of the show on our website, ourautoexpert.com. You can see the videos, you can listen to previous podcasts, you can watch all of our TV coverage, you can find out about new cars, all at ourautoexpert.com, including reading some very interesting articles on vehicles, trucks, SUVs, electric cars. Roman Micah is still on the phone with us. Roman, let's talk a little bit about the one truck that you would, let's say is going to make the biggest change for this year. Well, we don't have Roman. All right. We'll carry on then. I wanted to also talk about CES a little bit coming up. And CES this year has a lot of electronics, the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas. In Vegas this year, a lot of interesting vehicles being revealed. John Vincent is with us from US News and World Report. John, let's talk about CES in general becoming a show which is much more about cars.
It is. It started, just being general consumer electronics, but now we've built it into this huge show that is as much a car show as any other car show on the calendar.
A lot of tech-based stuff. There's rumors, because a lot of car companies don't want you to know what they're doing, but Lamborghini will have a press conference. Fisker will have a press conference. Some people have already revealed their stuff. Some people are saying you can't talk about it until the event. Mercedes is supposed to have a jaw-dropping reveal and a jaw-dropping keynote speech. And they won't even tell us who's going to be at that keynote speech. But what we do know about the reveal is going to be the fact that Jeep are going to show off something which, boy, we've been asking for information in a long time, and they've chosen CES to reveal it.
Jeep and CES. It sounds like a weird marriage,
right? It's more of a SEMA thing for Jeep, the aftermarket show, but the Consumer Electronics Show, they've chose to reveal
plug-in hybrid versions of some of their vehicles.
Yes, so this the Compass and the Jeep Wrangler.
And the Wrangler.
And the Cherokee.
This is a long time coming.
It is. They've been talking about these
vehicles. I don't
vehicles.
think the Cherokee is going to be plug-in.
Yeah, it's supposed to.
All right, well, I'll double-check that.
Okay.
We need to check that one. But we do know there's going to be a Wrangler. We're certain of that.
Yeah, the Wrangler's the one thing we've been talking about for a long time.
Yep, they've been talking about it forever, and we're finally going to see it, and it could be a segment changer.
I think the problem with a lot of these vehicles is that they haven't been great in fuel economy. And so anything they can do to get the fuel economy better. Diesel is a good way to do that, but of course there's quite a premium that comes with diesel because you have to have the ammonia spritzer in the vehicle to reduce the emissions, so it becomes expensive to put those systems in. Not so much as it does to maintain. It used to be expensive to maintain an ammonia spritzer for a diesel vehicle, but now it's considerably cheaper. But actually putting that in is quite expensive and quite complicated because the catalytic converters in the back of those vehicles take a long time.
Well, and if you look at what many people use their Wranglers for today, it's a commuter vehicle during the week, it's an adventure vehicle on the weekend. So with a plug-in hybrid version, you can do most of your driving, most of your commuting on electricity alone, and then when you need that gasoline power, off-road on the weekend, 100 miles from nowhere, it's got the gasoline engine as well.
Yeah, and I like that idea too. They don't seem to... I know they don't seem to do really... looking at some American car companies, you can get about 20 miles on the plug-in version of it, whereas some of the Asian car companies, you can do like 50 miles on the plug-in version of their vehicles. It seems like the electricity alone portion of the vehicle still lags quite a bit.
It does, but still, most people's commute is short enough that the electricity will cover it.
And of course, it helps generally with fuel economy anyway, even if you are using the gas engine at that time.
Yes. And off-road, the electric has a great benefit in low-end torque.
Yes.
It's instant low-end torque.
Starting from a light. It's interesting to look at where fuel economy, where fuel is used in a vehicle. So as you drive a vehicle, where does the most fuel get used? And of course, when you get up to speeds under around 60 miles an hour and you travel at a speed for a long time, that's the best fuel economy you'll get in a gasoline engine. But stopping and starting is where you use the worst or the most amount of fuel. It's the worst fuel economy areas. So sitting at a light, if you can feather your vehicle away from a light very lightly, you can actually really change the amount of fuel that you use. Most of us, that light changes, stomp on the gas. And of course, you get up to speed and then you let off the gas. That's the worst portion of fuel economy. Thanks to these electric portions of the engine, that actually has the electricity flip in as you're at a standstill, and to start the engine and to go, that's where you don't use as much gas, and it can save you huge amounts.
And electric motors are very good at low RPMs, so they will give you that instant boost right off the line while the gasoline engine catches up.
I think if you sit and you have an instantaneous fuel economy in your car, it's instantaneous meter, and then you sit in your car at a light and watch how much fuel economy is as you leave on the light. That just makes your mouth drop. You're like, oh, I'm getting 3 miles a gallon as I pull away from a light. Yep, that's right. That's what you get. You just have to be a bit cleverer about it and pulling away. So that makes a huge difference to that. What do you think the uptake's going to be of these vehicles? And I'm guessing there's going to be quite a premium for it.
There will be a price premium. It will be a niche vehicle in their lineup.
$57,000 is sort of the price. $59,000 for a Jeep Wrangler diesel. If you want bells and whistles on that vehicle, that's extremely expensive. I think that they've got to make it cheaper than that.
They won't make it cheaper than that.
No, see, that's going to be the problem. It's going to be much more of a emotional buy than a financial buy for most people, because they're not going to save enough money for the premium.
Well, remember, as a plug-in hybrid, it comes with a tax credit.
Yeah, I guess that's true. And FCA still have tax credits available.
Lots of them,
which is, I think the Pacifica plug-in hybrid was the Fiat 500 electric, which is now no longer.
Correct.
It's vanished. I do know that there are enough 500 Cinquecentes produced that they have enough of it. They have a year's supply. So if you want to go buy one, they have a year's supply sitting at dealerships right now. They'd be more than happy to do a great deal on one of those for you. Let's talk a little bit about... so it's interesting that it's coming in other versions apart from the Wrangler. It's interesting that the Compass are doing it. And I think ultimately the plan is to try and put this system in all of their vehicles, right?
I think eventually you're going to see this system in most FCA vehicles.
Maybe not the Dodges, but pretty much everything.
Maybe some version of the Dodges, but not the high-performance versions.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about Chrysler. We've heard about this airflow concept that they're going to have at the show. I remember 2006 at the Portland International Auto Show, they had something called the Imperial, I think. This is probably what the 300 became. That was an amazing vehicle. It was sort of this sort of big 1950s looking presidential style sedan with coach doors on it, but it never actually evolved. I think it may have become the 300 at some point, or some elements were taken out of it. So they're great at doing concepts. Dodge have a great history of concepts. But this concept, I'm not sure that this concept is a sedan or an SUV or what it is.
It's one of those tweener things that has elements of a lot of things in it. And Airflow, the name of it, is a very historic name at Chrysler.
Right.
It is the first streamlined vehicle they made back in the early 20th century.
Now, Digital Trends are calling it a crossover. I'm not sure I necessarily agree looking at it. The roofline may be slightly higher, but the front end, I mean, it looks very Porsche Macan to me.
Mm-hmm. Does.
Well, if you call it a crossover, it can be anything.
Right, crossover between it could be 1% SUV and 99% car.
Exactly.
I guess that's a good way to look at it. This is, I think, a lot of Nissans that have been done in the past have been very futuristic, with no likelihood that a lot of the stuff will actually make it into the car. Steering wheels that end up being buttons, or just single, so more like jet fighters. Although interestingly enough, looking at the new Corvette C8, it does have a square steering wheel, which is kind of interesting. But this has a lot of stuff in it which could or could not possibly. There's nothing outlandish here. Multiple screens, those sort of things that we may start to see in vehicles.
Well, we all know that Chrysler needs more models in its lineup. Right now it has 3. It has the 300, it has the Pacifica, and it has the Pacifica Light, which is the new Voyager.
I think that they also will do these things. We know that the FCA have a bunch of new crossovers coming, but I think they're still 2 or 3 years away. I mean, the Jeep, we will probably see, I'm guessing, a new Durango mid-cycle refresh this year. They seem to keep pulling something out of their hat with that vehicle. I know that Pacifica's due for a remodel this year. But there's, we know that the Jeep Wagoneer and Grand Wagoneer are coming from the Jeep side, but we have no real indication as to when. New York's usually a big show for them. They usually roll out something that's jaw-dropping. I'm going to guess that's going to be the Pacifica, and probably something with the Durango at the Chicago show in February. But I think it's unlikely we're going to see some of these crossovers, at least in the Dodge, Chrysler wheelhouse, for another couple of years.
And that's too bad, because some of the models in their lineups are getting very, very old.
Let's talk about Fisker. They are coming out. They hadn't actually got a car in production, but yet they have another concept.
Yes, they do.
This one is called the Ocean.
And it's an SUV, which is what people want.
Which is good. It's a good start. I hear that the interior is completely vegan.
It was designed in California, so naturally.
Recycled. I think the car is pretty much 99.9% recycled.
Or recyclable.
Which is good. I think one of the things about this is they have great ideas at Fisker. I'd really like to see something that there's no dealer network, there's nothing.
Yeah, we need to see a product.
Again, Karma is kind of doing well. They've started to get new dealerships. They're opening new dealerships around the country. They have cars in production. They're moving around California. They're coming out of California into other states with their electric sports cars. But Fisker doesn't seem to be quite where Karma is, and their solid-state battery was always what they based their vehicles on. After seeing the Ocean, we don't see a solid-state battery yet.
Yeah.
I love the roof on the Ocean. Their solar panels.
Yep. They do. Cool. They're great. He is a designer by trade.
It has
Fisker.
the California mode where you hit one button and it opens the roof and opens all of the windows.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I really like the ideas of this vehicle. I just want to see it produced. I'm not sure that they will produce anything. A lot of cool stuff. Let's talk a little bit about Mercedes. They have a big mouth dropper at CES revealing this car of the future. It's exactly what Mercedes do really, really well. They are known for taking stuff to CES, which is just like, holy hell, that is impressive.
And even more impressive is a lot of the stuff they show at CES, that technology makes it to the road.
Yeah, although Hey Mercedes does need a little bit of a tweak because it does not understand my English accent. which
Nick, we don't understand your English accent.
you've been listening to 2 hours of. You have no idea what I've been saying for the last 2 hours. That's the sadness of this show. John Vincent from US News and World Report, thank you for being with us. Presumably, we can read all of your stuff at US News and World Report.
USnews.com.
Yeah, usnews.com. Truck Girl Jen, thank you for putting the show together again. Of course, you can listen to previous episodes of the show by going to ourautoexpert.com. You can see all of our TV and our videos. Quickly, in the last 10 seconds, Jen, money's no object. What do you buy right now?
Oh my God, a Lamborghini.
All right.
Of course.
John?
Mercedes AMG GT.
I think it would either, for me, be the Urus from Lamborghini or the Supra from Toyota. Those are my two. All right. You wish what you would buy soon, and send us a message on social media. Until next week.
Ferrari would be nice too.
All right. Pipe down.
You've been listening to Our Auto Expert with Nik Miles. Find all the show episodes at ourautoexpert.com. Please follow us on all social media, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Our Auto Expert, and message us for a quick and witty response.